And Amy, so Amy, you remember this case of Kermit Gosnell. This is this gruesome abortionist out east in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. Brett Baer did an hour special on
He
him,
did.
and it was
Uh,
oftentimes too graphic to stomach, but yes. I
he
remember.
was convicted, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, convicted of 3 counts of murder and lesser included charges, sentenced to life in prison. Of course, the pro-abort movement, as exemplified by Planned Parenthood, uh, tried to minimize this isolated case. This is not what happens. Uh, Kermit Gosnell murdering babies born alive. That's what he did and convicted of. But a new look at the Gosnell case suggests that perhaps that's the tip of the iceberg on this matter. Anne McElhinney, who's a documentary filmmaker, she's the author of Gosnell, The Untold Story of America's Most Prolific Serial Killer. Most prolific serial killer. When you think serial killer, you think like John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy.
But yeah.
You don't think Kermit Gosnell. Miss McElhinney makes the point that apparently we should think Kermit Gosnell, and she joins us now. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. It's good to be with you guys. Yeah, exactly. Most prolific serial killer. Absolutely. The only reason he isn't on any list is because, of course, people don't want to think that these people that he killed were human beings. But they were children. But a lot of people would like to think that they really weren't human.
But in terms of the charges upon which he was convicted, did I have that right? He was convicted of multiple counts of murder, and as part of it, and that led to the life sentence that he received.
Absolutely. He's serving 3 life sentences for killing 3 babies, and more years for manslaughter of a woman, Carnamaya Monger,
right,
who died after being drugged to death in his disgusting clinic.
So what your piece in the film, The Untold Story, what's the untold part of it?
You know, I think the thing is that everyone on the planet Earth knows who Michael Brown is. Everyone knows his name. They're even going to put a monument up to him in Ferguson. No one knows who Shamika Shaw is, a 22-year-old black woman who died as a result of a botched abortion at Gosnell's clinic. No one knows who Carnamaya Monger's name is. And we thought, and no one knows baby boy A's life story, born in 2008 on the 12th of July, died the same day. But he was so big and so impressive, and he tried so hard to live that 2 of the workers at the clinic took a photograph of him. We want to fill out the stories of these people who lived and died and were ignored and forgotten, but no longer. I mean, 2 women died in the clinic, and these bodies were piling up in the basement. And the Department of Health in Pennsylvania decided for 17 years that they wouldn't go and investigate. So, we think all of that needs to be exposed. We think all of that needs to be, graphically described. And that's what we do in this book. And there's stories here that are not known, that no one has known before. That the night of the raid, the night that the cops eventually caught up with this place and raided it, and they walked in, the smell of urine, cat feces on the ground, cats walking around the procedure rooms, a disgusting turtle tank in the area, and then they went into the kitchen area where they found row upon row of jars with babies' severed feet. And in the middle of that mayhem, they had the DEA, the FBI, the DA's office, a huge number of people, and 2 nurses were brought from the Department of Health. And a woman wanted to have an abortion, and they said we should let her go ahead and have the abortion. So an abortion went ahead during the time that they were having this raid in this crazy place. But the Department of Health phoned Harrisburg, phoned the top people at the Department of Health. They said, no, go ahead with that. These are the kind of stories that are told in the book, and people can buy the book at gosnellbook.com. It's sold out within 3 days last week, but it's been reissued, reprinted, and you can go to gosnellbook.com and get a copy.
Well, why did it take 17 years for them to investigate?
Well, this is really unfortunate for people who are conservatives. Governor Tom Ridge became the governor of Pennsylvania on a moderate pro-choice ticket in 1995, and he put out an edict saying to these to people who worked at the Department of Health, whatever you do, don't touch abortion clinics, don't go near abortion clinics, don't come in the way of a woman's right to choose. And as a result of that, for 17 years, I mean, it's hard to get your head around it. 17 years, no one passed the threshold, no one walked in to see this hellhole. And if anyone had, something might have happened. The bodies were piling up, were literally piling up in the basement. Bodies of children. He had them stuffed into the refrigerator. He had them in kitty litter things, in Minute Maid jars with the tops cut off. This is what anyone who would have seen, if anyone had come from the Department of Health and bothered to come and do their job. But unfortunately, the rock came from the top, and Governor Tom Ridge, a Republican, a Catholic, by the way, has his hands in this.
And this is one of the issues, right, that's often argued is if these abortion clinics, their medical procedures being performed, why shouldn't they be held to the regulatory standards that other surgical facilities are held to? Somehow abortion facilities in some states, including the one we're in, are treated differently.
Yeah, there you go. And that's why we certainly make this suggestion that this is not an isolated case. Listen to what you've just said. Sure, it's complete nonsense. Why is it? And I suppose the answer is because this is the sacred cow. People are so ideologically connected to abortion. They love it so much. It's like a sacrament for the left, that it can't be touched, that it must be, nothing must happen that would in any way interfere with it. It's complete nonsense. And if you live in a world like that, as crazy as that sounds, stuff like Gosnell will happen. People like Gosnell will get away with murder, which is exactly what happened here.
Is there any sense of, the Planned Parenthood, as I mentioned at the outset, wanted to make Gosnell this kind of isolated case? This is they denounced him, of course, when it became clear that this guy was going to go down and should go down. But is there any sense of, maybe other Gosnells that are out there that we don't know because the scrutiny isn't there?
Absolutely, and it's very interesting that you say that because we know now recently that the congressional investigation into the Planned Parenthood videos, which did not rely on the Planned Parenthood videos that David Daleiden produced from the Center for Medical Progress, but actually did its own investigation, discovered a unnamed doctor that they reported on in Texas. Texas, by the way, a red state, and the affidavits they took from staff there literally read very similar to things that come from the Gosnell case. He was delivering babies alive in Texas and twisting their necks, literally twisting their necks off. So, no, it's not an isolated case. We know there are cases being discussed from Baton Rouge. There was New York, there's Delaware, New Jersey. This is not an isolated case. And when you live in a world, this crazy world of America, where the abortion laws we have here can only be compared to North Korea, to a place as mad as North Korea, you're going to have this kind of story. And I think that's why we wrote the book. And people can get it at gosnellbook.com, because it's in the detail. It's actually the details that matter. Knowing the story in a kind of a bland way doesn't really help. But knowing the details and knowing the names of the people who had these wonderful jobs in Harrisburg, these beautiful government jobs, and all of them, a lot of them had medical backgrounds, were nurses, and did nothing, while the complaint after complaint after complaint piled up, and they didn't get in their car and go and check out what was going on. It's beyond belief. And I don't believe for a second that the culture has changed in Pennsylvania.
Do you think that race had anything to do with it since he was African American, or was he servicing some group of people who needed late-term abortions? I mean, what would be the reasoning, seriously, behind not going there for more than a decade?
You're asking the question, did you say race? Did race have something to do with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you say, he was an African American. He did service a lot. A lot of the people who came to him were African Americans, and actually, he was actually racist. He treated white women better, and the white women had a totally different room in the clinic, which was kept clean, and the linens were changed, and it didn't have the stench or the blood stains like the other rooms. It's a very good question, and I actually wonder whether or not race is part of it. What was the phrase that George Bush had, the bigotry of low expectations? There's a very interesting moment in the book where these Jefferson School of Nursing sent nursing students to that place to do their training, and none of those nurses complained about the place, and they were questioned during the grand jury situation, and they were asked, like, what is wrong with you? How is it you didn't run out of the place and go and speak to the police or go to the health department or do anything? Why is that? And one of them famously said, oh, well, I thought that's how things are in an inner city, which is that big of low expectations,
Yeah.
which I think definitely played into this.
Wow. She is Anne McElhinney. She's a journalist, documentary filmmaker, and the author of the book Gosnell, The Untold Story of America's Most Prolific Serial Killer, which you can get at gosnellbook.com. Anne, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.